bodyguards. I walk with my family. Again, big shouts out to my beautiful wife and my daughter, Brooklyn, and my son, Isaiah. And, I walk with my family and I talk to people. I don't walk with bodyguards and make myself unattainable. So to everybody out there, you know what I'm saying? I just want y'all to know that, I thank you again. I'll never stop thanking you, but worldwide, everybody, I love y'all, man. I never stop, saying that, but I will always communicate with y'all and have the time for you as you had the time for me.
No doubt. Can we go back and break down Doing Damage just a little bit? Can you tell me how DJ Jazzy Jeff influenced the group early on?
Yeah, that's a good question. And the thing is that we spoke a little and we touched a little on this, and I'm glad you asked it because it was the height of hip hop, and that was when Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince was coming out. Big things was going on in New York City at that time, like the new music seminars. It was going on. It was the first time that hip hop was going to really, really have like Manhattan locked down. Have the Marriott Marquis and all them hotels over there booked up. So with Jazzy Jeff and Fresh Prince at the time, I don't even think it was I think it was Fresh Prince or something, but they performed in Manhattan before the new music seminars, and they did a show at I think it was Union Square, and I think it was hosted by WBLS. And that was when not only they brought out the human beatbox Ready Rock C, they also turned around and had Jazzy Jeff introduce the Transformer scratch. When I listened to that Transformer scratch, me and AJ, we went over to Kurt's house. We started to talk to Kurt and let Kurt know that, hey, there was the DJ was doing this thing, this scratch, and it sounded like this. And mind you, I want to say in those days, Kurt was like a child genius. He was a very smart little guy at that time, and still is. But for his age, I want to say uncommonly smart. So Kurt jumps on the turntables, and after about 2 minutes, he's doing the Transformer scratch. And that's the first time, and I'm seeing him clicking these line buttons on the mixer, not even really doing it with the crossfader, but like clicking the line buttons on the mixer, almost like knowing that it sounds like almost like a computer breakage, but the record pulling a certain way. And he starts doing it. And truthfully speaking, in my life, he's the second person that I ever seen do that scratch after Jazzy Jeff. And him knowing how to do that scratch took us a long way because he exercised that scratch on a lot of tracks on Doing Damage. And if you can recall, that was 88. We recorded that album and had it ready to go, even though Strong Island came out. Most of those tracks were recorded already. But he was already doing that scratch and able to do it for a long time. And as a result of it, as a DJ, I believe we were one of the first groups to turn around and even give a DJ a straight 16 to scratch on many of songs. And then we turned around, and as us growing up together, we never really, took into consideration the structure of how a group was, 2 MCs and the DJ was on salary. We made our DJ a part of the group, and JVC consisted 3, and we were a band. That's how we looked at ourselves. 33 and a third, 33 and a third, 33 and a third. And that's how we were going to go ahead and do it. And one wasn't going to turn around and be any more understood than the other. We were equal. So our DJ now was a member of the group, an actual member. And that's how we started presenting things and structuring things. Kurt Kazal was never on salary in JVC Force. He's one of the founders. So when
you guys had control over the whole album, all the way from recording to the album artwork. Can you take us back to how that iconic photo on the album came about?
Yeah, we were taking some pictures, and back in those days, you had a little box camera. So I had always had a little box camera, and we called ourselves, we were going to do the photo shoot. So we put on some good clothes and stuff like that, and we went into our city, and we were going to take all the pictures in our city. Central Islip had a college called New York Tech, so we went to the steps. We took a lot of pictures and stuff by the walkways and the stones and stuff. But the funny thing about it was when we were heading home, we seen that car on another road in Central Islip called Spur Drive. And the car was just sitting there abandoned. So we kind of got next to the car. I jumped on the top of the car, and the picture was taken. We crushed up the windshield like just a little more and missed it in a little more, but needless to say, the picture was taken. So back then, we take the little box camera over to the place in Central Islip by a little parking lot in a place that we called like Woolworths at the time, but for most in Central Islip, they know it as a Seatown parking lot. There was a little photo mat shop there, little photo booth. There you drop your photos off, drive up, and you leave. When we got the film back, all of the pictures were blurred because of the sunlight at the college. And the only picture that really came out good because of the trees on Spur Drive was the picture that we used on Doing Damage. So that's how that picture came about, and that's how we came about using it. After we got that picture and decided to use it, we decided we'll name the album Doing Damage. The label gave us all creative control. So Kurt and I, we created the logo. Again, he was an excellent artist also at that time, so he drew up the logo, and we settled on the colors and made little additions and stuff like that. And then we went ahead and we designed the album cover. We recorded the album, with the exception of 3 tracks that was recorded by the legendary Charlie Murata. After that, Kurt was pretty much running the studio, so we recorded the rest of the album on our own. The album was written, produced, arranged, everything JVC, down to the cover and everything. Everything was delivered to B-Boy Records as a full package. Mm-hmm.
Where did the lyrics on the album come from? What at the time? What inspired your creative process? What was going on in your lives?
Well, again, we came from Central Islip and all of Long Island and all of the cities and stuff surrounding. It was a great opportunity for identity. I knew people from different towns, and so I seen different things. And Long Island was a great place to be, man. I mean, when the summers came, we were surrounded by beaches. It was the suburbs. We took the train as kids with hip hop and stuff. We took the train down to the city. We did everything that normal folks do, with the exception that we had to travel back to Long Island. But when it comes to the way that we grew up on Long Island, we grew up like suburb kids. We grew up, but on the same, we grew up like every other family, trying to go ahead and provide for their families. But on the same note, we had to also understand that people that were coming out there were also coming out there from the city. So the kids that were out there, they kind of had a rough edge and stuff like that, but it was civilized. And like I say, growing up, we experienced the more finer, maybe sometimes the more finer things. But once people started realizing, what was going on in Long Island, they wanted to come out there. And They came out there many a times and had a really, really great time. But we as Long Islanders, we take pride in the place again that we come from. And, you know, we don't we take a lot of pride in where we come from, and we love it.
Uh-huh.
No matter where we go to, we're always from Long Island, and that's for everybody from Long Island. And most people are in different places, but they still represent Long Island. Long Island has bred some of the most, to me, best MCs going through the golden era and best groups going through the golden era. You know, there's many people out there that, you know, I must shout out. I mean, I must shout out, like, you know, the legendary Diamond J Diamond, Lenny Ace Morrow, one of the producers on Project Funk the World, DJ 45, Caleb Boss, you know, the legendary Kurt Kazal. I mean, we had DJs, we had groups, you know, we had the De La Souls, again, we had the Keith Murrays, we had the Craig Max, the EPMDs, you know, the Public Enemies, you know, the list goes, the Rakims, the list goes on and on and on. You know, but for everybody that came out of Long Island at that time, the leaders of the new school, shout out Charlie Brown. I was on the phone with him last night for 3 hours getting ready for this interview. And I would also say that I feel like the leaders of the new school is the most highest version of what you're going to get from a new school rap band to sound like the Cold Crush. Because the leaders of the new school was all out nasty. And, you know, Charlie Brown and the other members of the leaders of the new school are some cats that I really respect. So again, I'm going to say shout out to Charlie Brown because, again, like I say, I shouted him out last night and we were talking before this interview. And he's a very enlightening brother, too, when it comes to, like, facts on Long Island. But, you know, again, you know, when I do these interviews, I like to bring light to the city that I come from because, again, we grew up and we had some of the finest times in life, all of us in Long Island. And it's the people that we've become to this day. And it's the unity that my city still has, you know. And don't get me wrong, I have people everywhere sends me love and I love them right back just as much. But when it comes to my city, for some reason, every time I go home, I find it hard to turn around and leave. And Long Island will always be in my heart. You know, I represent Long Island. And also shout out to Connecticut, right across the Long Island Sound.
No doubt. How did life change for you after your debut album?
Oh, man. It changed a lot. It changed a lot. The popularity began at that point in time. The song came out going into the song came out on New Year's Eve night, 1988. Red Alert was the first DJ to turn around and spin the song. Once the song came out, things was moderate and slow for a little while, but then it started to catch to the other DJs and it started to play a lot in New York, and then it started to play 3 and 4 times on the mix shows, and people started passing the house and, you know, blowing the horn and blasting the song 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning and, you know, different stuff like that. But at the end of the day, like I said, it was one of those things that no matter where you went in Long Island, in your city, these were the people that you had grew up with, no matter what record deal you got or anything like that, right? You were going to be the same as them because, I mean, you know better than them. I mean, these are the people that made you. You know, when you're growing up, you become a product of the environment where you come from. And again, I come from a city where, you know, a lot of us, we went to high school together, and, you know, so there was a lot of love. You know, when I went to high school, there wasn't necessarily like a whole lot of cliques and stuff like that. People just knew each other. Yeah, there was some beefs here and then some beefs there, and some people always not going to like each other. But for the most part, you know, everybody just kind of knew each other. When somebody threw a house party in Central Islip, I mean, the block was packed. It's like the whole city came, the whole town came, I should say. But it's just things like that, man. I mean, you know, we grew up a certain kind of way, and again, to this day, it's the unity is there, and it makes you proud to represent where you come from. And
Seems like that debut album had pretty good success. What eventually happened to your relationship with B-Boy Records?
well, the relationship with B-Boy Records became a situation to where they weren't delivering what they were promising. You know, I have to, you know, I'm not the type of person to bash any situation. There's a lot of good that came out of B-Boy Records. I mean, for everything that we had turned around and did, you know, that's the label that turned around and like gave us our popularity. It gave us that start. So I always have to turn around and be thankful to them for, you know, what they did as a label, because I mean, it wouldn't be no Strong Island or maybe JVC Force if it wasn't for them. They did make the first call, and they did turn around and they did push the stuff. But the bottom line is when we got to the end of a year's worth of the deal, and we had delivered them the album and did everything that we said we were going to do, they weren't doing the same, you know. And our popularity was already growing, so we were understanding that we're seeing other groups coming out. We're seeing other groups coming out. And with them coming out, we're seeing the kind of deals that they're getting and the kind of tour support that they're getting. So we were looking at those things, and it made us decide that we wanted to pursue different avenues. So we started looking. We got a lawyer at that point in time, a really good lawyer. His name is Michael Turok. He's still in the business to this day. He advised us actually of how we can get out of the deal, and that's we went ahead and we got out of the deal. We were being looked at already by Idler's Warlock. So we had an album, we had about a half an album already ready to go for them. And they wanted us to come down into Brooklyn to go ahead and record that album. So they had agreed to all the budgets and everything, and it was the first time as a group, right, that they offered that we were offered in advance. At B-Boy Records, you know, we were offered some money, but it wasn't what would be considered an advance. You know, B-Boy Records, we were given a manager. He wasn't our choice. They just said he came with the label. As kids, we loved hip hop so much that we say, well, okay, hey, we didn't know, so hey, okay, we got this guy, slacky manager. But as you start going on and you start seeing the groups and the peers in Long Island growing, with groups coming out and seeing what they're getting, you start realizing that you have to do something different. So when we went with Idler's Warlock, yeah, the situation had stepped up, and we put out the Forcefield album through them, which was an album based on just how we felt at the time, what we not no concepts or anything, just what we felt. We took chances. Music was changing in different directions. We loved house music. All of us loved house music. So we turned around and we did some house tracks. We loved the disco songs that we grew up with, like listening to with our parents growing up. So we did a couple of, like, you know, dance tracks. And then we had the stuff that we wanted, which was like the hardcore fusion. But even going into the Forcefield years, we knew that music was going in a direction that you weren't going to be able to just go ahead and deliver like what you wanted anymore. It was still in the industry. It was also becoming more structured. So when we like I said, when we stepped over to Warlock Records and we did the Forcefield album, we put that album out. The thing about that album was it was good and it did what it had to do. But the label at the time had also they were looking for these house